I am Katina Horton, the Love and Freedom Toxic Relationship Recovery Coach. And this is the Valley of Grace podcast, helping women reclaim their power, soul, and identity so they will know they're enough. Today's Bible teaching is entitled The Dangers of Going to Therapy with Narcissistic, Emotionally Immature / Toxic Individuals. You want people to understand where it is you come from, right? We all want to be what? We all want to be understood. We all want to be heard. We all want to be loved. We all want to belong somewhere, right? We don't just want to fit in, because when you think about it, when we're just striving to fit in, that means that we are fitting in would be likened to being like everybody else, right? Having the same type of clothes that everybody else wear, carrying the same kind of purses everybody else carry, wearing the same kind of shoes everybody else wears, right? So when we fit in, that means that what we're like going into the area of being a clone. So we don't just want to fit in, we want to belong wherever it is we are. And then whether it's a romantic partner, or if it's a friendship, if it's a ministry partner, or a business partner, we also want to be, we don't just want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to belong, we want to be loved, we want to be able to connect with them. And so the worst thing that we could do is end up in a relationship with any one individual where we don't feel like all of those things are going on, like we don't belong, we can't connect to them, we can't be loved by them, etc. Right? And that's why I get my coaching methodology, Love and Freedom, from Freedomology, right? And it combines that operating system of love and freedom that God uses. When we're in relationships that do not go according to the operating system of love and freedom, we're always in a constant movement of power and control. And so when we end up in these relationships where we see we're going in a merry-go-round, right? They ain't going nowhere, literally. We're on a hamster wheel, right? It's a merry-go-round. And then sometimes I say hamster wheel when I use that, even thinking about the hamster wheel where you got this lax cycle of addiction. When we're on that hamster wheel, when you think about a hamster on a hamster wheel, his starting point and destination is the same. He ain't going nowhere, right? The actual wheel is moving around, but he is not going anywhere. He's exerting a lot of energy, right? But he's going nowhere. The starting point and the destination is the same. And so when we get to these type of individuals who have not done their self-work, the starting point and the destination of each and every conversation you have with them is the same, right? They're the same. There's no movement. And you'd get to the point where 3 years have passed, 4 years have passed, 5 years have passed, 6 years have passed, 7 years have passed, and you will realize I've been going around this mountain too long, so to speak, as God told the Israelites, you've been going around this mountain too long. So you'd be talking about the same subjects, the same things that supposedly issues in your relationship. And you have not even gone from point A to point B. You stayed at point A, and the next thing you know, 30, 40 years have passed. Both of you guys got basically 1 foot over in the grave and 1 foot out, and you're still arguing about point A. And you haven't gone anywhere on any of those issues, but you've remained at point A, right? And so what happens is we'll get to the point where we feel like, you know what? If I can just get to a safe environment, and I could talk to these individuals and help them to understand how it is that I feel in this safer environment, everything's going to be okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call up a therapist, and I'm going to schedule for us to go in and talk to him or her, and they're going to help us to be able to resolve this issue, right? Basically, we're going to slide over from the unresolved issue to the resolved issue status with the click of a button, right? That's what we're thinking. That's what we're hoping and praying and thinking that will happen. Okay. And we're thinking that Matthew 18:15-17 is what's going to take place, where it says, if your brother or sister sins, Go and point out their fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. Except, see, the problem that lies therein is when it comes to a narcissist slash toxic slash emotionally immature individual, you talking to them is only going to keep you at the same starting point and destination, right? So you figure, okay, I'm going to follow the second part of this verse. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. So you're thinking, okay, if I go to the therapist's office, for sure, this situation is going to be resolved. But that's not so. It's not true, right? It's not how life works. When an individual has not done enough self-work, going into therapy with them is going to bring their soul to an ultimatum on these issues. It literally upsets and then destabilizes the equilibrium of their souls. You doing growth, self-work, and evolving into a different person every couple of years, every 6 months, every 5, 10 years, however the frequency is, whatever that frequency is upsetting their equilibrium. They have been operating on the same operating system of power and control for years. And so you taking them, right? You thinking, not taking them, but you and them going into, you thinking, all you got to do is get them to a therapist's office, get the therapist to help them to understand, to be able to see what they can't see. Or you explaining it to them different, that's going to be able to help them to see what they can't see. There's no amount of explaining in the world. There's no amount of therapy in the world. There's no amount of anything in the world that's going to override each and every individual's free will, right? The situation has to get bad enough where they come to a fork in the road and they know that there's no other option but for them to go ahead and do what? Do their self-work, so that the relationship can get better for the sake of themselves first, right? Because if we're just doing something for somebody else, that's gonna be a temporary situation. It's not gonna last, right? And so what happens is they're going to do anything and everything that they can to avoid dealing with the issues, dealing with the truth about those issues and the impact that these issues have had on both your life and the lives of everybody else that's close to you, that's surrounding you, who are part of your community, who've been connected with you through during the course of these issues, right? They're not going to even be able to want to look at that. First of all, they're not going to want to look at the truth. The scripture says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. In order for us to know something, right, and to know it intimately is what I want to say, not just know it, have knowledge of it, right? Because we can just collect data all day long. But in order for us to truly know something, we have to have an intimate relationship with that thing. And so it says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So in order for us to get to that freedom, we've got to get to a point where what? We know that thing like the back of our hands, right? We know it intimately. We've spent time with it, right? We've taken that thing and picked it up and analyzed it and written notes on it. And that's how we're supposed to be when it comes to other people that we supposedly care about. We've looked at it from every angle to see what it is that's inside of us that we're doing wrong, rather than what? Taking that external environment and trying to change that, because that's not going to do anything. That's what the toxic / emotionally immature / narcissist do. They try to change the external environment, right? They bring up these chaotic and dramatic and traumatic situations to match the internal chaos and confusion that's going on inside of them, right? With their emotions, with the trauma, the whole 9 yards. So they have to match that, right? So that the external, they have to find a way for the external to match up with the internal. And they're going to do it any way possible. Triangulating, manipulating, projection, deflection, minimizing, invalidating, judging, criticizing, condemning, You name it, they're going to do it. And so what happens is that when we don't realize the danger, the absolute danger of dealing with these type of individuals in therapy, we are in for a rude awakening, because one of 4 trauma responses is going to come up. Either it's going to be fight, it's going to be flight, there's going to be freeze or fawn for them to protect themselves, right? And this means that when their traumatic defense mechanisms are at work, you will more than likely be attacked right there in front of the therapist. I'm telling you, take my word for it, okay? I'm a witness, living witness to it firsthand. When you're with an individual that has not done enough self-work, that is not emotionally intelligent, who does not care about self-improvement, growth, evolving, and going through some pain in order to get to the other side, you will be met with one trauma defense mechanism after the next. And it will leave you with soul damage. You went in there thinking that you were going to follow this scripture over in Matthew 18, 15 through 17. You got another thought coming. You have got another thought coming if you think that that's what's going to happen in therapy. You're going to end up being attacked. You're going to end up with more soul damage than you went in there with. You're going to end up being humiliated. All of this with your emotional, mental, and physical health and relational health being at stake just from you going in and thinking that the therapist will be able to get through to this individual. God has not even been able to get through to them because of the hardness of their hearts, right? And so we're thinking the therapist is going to be able to say something to make them have a come to Jesus moment. This individual has to get sick and tired of themselves before they move forward, right? They have to realize they've been on the merry-go-round and that there has been no growth at all. But us trying to convince them to do it by them going to therapy with us is only setting us up for more pain and hurt, right? And so what happens is that the therapist can control the flow of conversation by constantly redirecting their clients, right? However, he or she cannot predict what defense mechanisms are going to show up, whether the client is going to shut down, whether the client is going to attack the other individual that they're in relationship with. They cannot predict that. They don't know what is going to pop up from that other individual. And this is where the danger lies, because they cannot predict, because they're not God and do not know what's going to come up in order for that person to try to protect themselves from the truth at all costs. You are a ticking time bomb, right? For your soul, your mind, body, soul, spirit, and your heart to be wrecked over sitting right there in a therapeutic setting, right? And this you all did just for the sake of thinking things were going to be better. You didn't know that that's what this person was going to do. You had no way of knowing. There's no way to warn you of this. So that's what I'm saying. You have to be careful taking certain individuals who have not. They've already shown you outside of therapy that they're just going to keep going right around in this circular conversation and there's going to be non-movement. So to think you're going to take them into therapy, they're going to have a come to Jesus moment, everything is going to change, will be setting yourself up for more soul damage, right? And humiliation, because they're going to pick, because of their traumatic defenses, if they're going to fight mode, they're going to pick the most painful thing that they can think about and humiliate you with that in front of the therapist, right? And a person does not have to be a narcissist in order to use the DARVO method. Remember, DARVO stands for denial, attack, reverse, victim, offender, which means that first they're going to deny what you're saying. They might look at it as the truth and admit it, and then it might last for maybe up to 2 minutes. Then they're going to deny what you've said. Then they're going to attack you, right? By humiliating you, projecting, deflecting, judging, criticizing, condemning, minimizing, invalidating, all of that. This last nasty little gaslighting cocktail. And then they're going to switch places and they're going to be reversing and they're going to be the victim. You're going to be the one that did something wrong according to them, because they have to be the victim at all costs. And so that means upon hearing the truth about the issues you've employed, like I said, the individual is going to deny what you said, and they're going to go through all of this little toxic cocktail of sorts that they've got in a little bag, a tube bag they've been using for years as a coping mechanism and to help protect themselves, right? It's on automatic. It's a trauma defense mechanism to keep their world intact. And from them being in a bubble and from the knowledge of the truth from penetrating in, when you're not prepared for this, it can be a disaster. They have toxic belief systems that they've been using for years to keep their world intact. They're not going to let you interrupt their flow. Remember that. And so that means 9 times out of 10, you're going to leave that session with massive damage, including shame, humiliation, more trauma, nothing resolved except for the fact that you have left that area alone, more alone than when you stepped in there, right? And humiliated, and the therapy and about something that has been so shameful that now the therapist doesn't even know how to react to what that individual has said, right? And the thing about this situation that you had no idea that these things were going to take place in the first place. You had no idea it was going to go down. You could not have anticipated it if you wanted to, and still it happened. And now you have more work to do. And that individual is going back into their world, their bubble, right, so to speak, doing what it is they were doing in the first place. And unless you have proof that this individual has been in therapy for a while and it's seen evidence that they have changed, that they've repented, and they're doing an about face to the behavior that they had going on before, going into therapy with an individual who's emotionally immature, narcissistic, or narcissist, has massive amounts of unresolved trauma, will take you away from where you are, trying to go back to where they are, living in the past. And you're trying to move forward, not backwards. Always count the cost. Is it worth it? This individual needs to be in a state of stagnancy stuckness / victim mentality, operating system mode at all times. And at the end of the day, we all have to do our own self-work. Wishful thinking will not get us there. Remember, you are enough. You don't have to have closure with individuals who've already set in their minds that they prefer to have every unresolved issue in their life to remain unresolved, right? To leave it as an open door. Reclaim your power, soul, and identity today. And I want to challenge you to reclaim the power, soul, and identity of your calling. Grab your keys to the kingdom and get your inheritance. I'm Katina Horton, the Love and Freedom Toxic Relationship Recovery Coach. Be blessed. I love your family. Until next time.
There was a son. He was devoured by earth. There was a God. They call him the Father. And there was a means to make a valley with grace out of this hole that I've dug for me. He made a valley of grace where things would change, and maybe they'd take up the cross high again. The valley of grace was never the same after he had died. The love that refines. There's there's no sense in trying to do it on my own. He gave more than I could have known. He turned those valleys into places to learn, instead of burn and perish away. And nights never so cold without His grace. How could I say that I've seen the world from His great love? How could I know what He could love? How would I've seen what He had in store for me if I didn't give up and let Him be my valley of grace, where things would change and maybe they'd take up the cross high again. The valley of grace never was the same after He had died. The love that refines. So much I wish I could give back, but I'm not intact to be sharing all of that. You took the price to give me that life, and now it's never gonna fade away. When I see I need more of Him, He whispers the sweetest of mercies upon my ears, and I won't go back the way it was again, 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 and now a valley of grace where things would change. I've seen the light, so valley of grace where things have changed. Oh, I've seen so much for me.